History isn't just shaped by wars, revolutions, or decades of politics. Sometimes it collapses in a single moment. One order, one signature, one reckless gamble. That's all it takes for a nation to rise or crumble. And the leaders you're about to see proved that a single decision can burn an empire to the ground. Stay with me till the end, because each story hits harder than the last, and you won't believe how fast a country can fall when its own leader lights the match. June 1941. Hitler makes one of the most fateful decisions in modern history. He invades the Soviet Union. On paper, it might have seemed like a bold, unstoppable move. The German army had stormed through Europe with terrifying efficiency. France, Poland, the Low Countries. And now Hitler was convinced he could crush the USSR just as easily. But what he didn't account for was the scale, the harsh winters, and the sheer resilience of the Soviet people. Opening a second front stretched Germany's resources to the breaking point. Supplies couldn't keep up with the rapid advance. Soldiers froze in temperatures that seemed unimaginable. And what was supposed to be a lightning campaign turned into a grinding nightmare. The early victories were tempting, but every mile deeper into Soviet territory sapped strength, morale, and momentum. By the time the Red Army started to push back, Hitler had dug a trap for himself. What began as one audacious decision now became the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. The invasion of the Soviet Union didn't just cost lives and equipment. It set the stage for a collapse that would erase the empire he had spent years building. 49 BC. Julius Caesar stands on the banks of the Rubicon River, army behind him, a decision weighing heavier than any sword. Crossing this narrow river wasn't just a military move. It was a declaration of war against the very republic he had once served. With one step, he defied the Senate, breaking Roman law, and sparked a civil war that would shake the ancient world to its core. The gamble paid off, but the consequences were enormous. Caesar's choice didn't just win battles, it dismantled the system of government Rome had relied on for centuries. The Republic, built on centuries of shared power and civic debate, began to crumble. From the chaos that followed rose the foundations of the Roman Empire, a world ruled not by consensus, but by the will of a single man. August 1990. Saddam Hussein makes a decision that will change Iraq and the Middle East forever. He orders the invasion of Kuwait. At the time, it seemed like a bold power move. Kuwait was tiny, rich in oil, and Saddam believed he could expand Iraq's influence almost overnight. But what he didn't fully anticipate was the world's reaction. Within days, a massive international coalition formed, led by the United States, demanding his withdrawal and preparing to strike with overwhelming force. The invasion triggered a cascade of consequences. Iraq faced crippling economic sanctions that brought the country to its knees, while internal uprisings by Kurds and Shiites were brutally suppressed, leaving the population trapped in fear and chaos. Saddam's once mighty army, feared across the region, was humiliated and decimated by coalition forces in the Gulf War. What seemed like a calculated grab for power turned into a self-inflicted disaster. One invasion, one rash decision, one miscalculation, and Saddam Hussein didn't just threaten a neighboring country. He undermined his own regime, destabilized his nation, and set the stage for years of suffering and unrest. February 2011. Muammar Gaddafi faces protests in Libya, ordinary citizens demanding change, calling for freedom after decades of his iron rule. And his response? He orders his security forces to open fire on them. That one decision lights a fuse that nobody could put out. What starts as scattered demonstrations quickly explodes into a nationwide uprising as Libyans rise up against decades of oppression. The violence draws international attention almost immediately. Foreign powers intervene, and soon Libya is plunged into a full-scale civil war. Cities burn, alliances shift, and the old structures of government to collapse. Gaddafi, once untouchable, finds his grip on the country, slipping faster than he ever imagined. By the time he falls, Libya is unrecognizable. No central authority, no rule of law. Only militias fighting for control and chaos reigning across the nation. One order to shoot, one moment of brutal miscalculation, and a country that had been under tight control for over 40 years spirals into total disorder. Gaddafi didn't just face an uprising. He triggered the collapse of Libya itself. December 1941. Japan stands at a pivotal moment in history, and Emperor Hirohito makes a choice that will change his nation forever. He approves the attack on Pearl Harbor. The plan is bold, a surprise strike intended to cripple the U.S. Pacific Fleet and secure Japan's dominance in Asia. But what Hirohito didn't fully grasp was how it would draw his country into a war it could never win. The consequences are swift and catastrophic. Japan goes from regional power to a global battlefield almost overnight. Cities are devastated by bombing campaigns. And before long, the world witnesses the unimaginable horror of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Famine spreads as the war consumes every resource, and Japanese families endure years of hardship and suffering. By the time peace finally arrives, the Japanese empire lies shattered, occupied by foreign forces, and forced to reckon with a reality far different from the vision that once seemed within reach. One approval, one strike, one decision that pulls an entire nation into a conflict it could not hope to survive. Hirohito's choice didn't just start a war. It set the stage for the end of the empire and reshaped Japan for generations to come. December 1991, Mikhail Gorbachev sits in the Kremlin, facing a nation on the brink. And then, in a single historic decision, he resigns and announces the dissolution of the Soviet Union. One moment, a superpower stands, the next, it ceases to exist. 15 republics, once bound together under one flag, are suddenly independent. But the transition is anything but smooth. The fallout is immediate. Economies collapse almost overnight, leaving millions struggling to survive. Civil unrest erupts as power vacuums form across the former Soviet states. What had once been a global superpower, feared and respected, disintegrates within days, leaving uncertainty and instability in its wake. Gorbachev's decision didn't just end a political system, it transformed the world order. One resignation, one act of closure, and the USSR was gone. A reminder that sometimes even the mightiest nations can fall in a single decisive moment. If you found these stories as shocking as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any history deep dives. Comment below and tell me which leader surprised you the most. I want to see what you think.